Welcome to another episode of At Home with Marltons with me, Kat Bester, your host. We are speaking to the lovely Dalene today around everything about summer and how to keep our pets safe in these hot summer months. Dalene Janse van Vuuren is an experienced veterinary nurse. She has over 17 years experience in both South Africa and in the UK. She's passionate about pet first aid and she has been advising pet owners for many years and giving them the best tips and advice from her personal and professional experience. Thank you so much for joining us, Dalene, today, and welcome.
Thank you, Kate. It's lovely being here, and I'm really looking forward to our session today.
No, it's our pleasure. I always love our chats. So, like I said, we are going to talk about keeping pets safe during the summer season. We are experiencing quite a massive heat wave over large parts of the country. One of the biggest things that come to mind is hydration. So, what advice would you give, and what are some of the things that we can do at home to manage hydration with our pets?
So I think one of the key things is to understand why hydration is so important is because if our pets get dehydrated, that can actually lead to shock of the body and death at the end of the day. So the same as with us, when you become dehydrated, your body show you certain signs, and it's that type of things that we have to look out for to avoid our pets getting dehydrated, and that's why we are talking about pet hydration today. So that's why I would like to give some tips about pet hydration and the importance of that. But it is because dehydration is the thing, I want to say, that cause death and shock to the pet's body. And so just from a, I want to say, pet safety point of view, hydration is not only drinking water. And I want to say, obviously, for a lot of us, we would assume people think fresh, clean water daily is part of, I want to say, our normal routine. But what we tend to forget, especially in this heat, if you've got water bowls outside, they also heat up from the sun, and it becomes unbearable for those pets to drink. So it's not only, I want to say, safe to say that you have to look at keeping your pets hydrated and keeping fresh water there. It's having different bowls in different parts of the house, making sure that they are in shade, making sure that the water is fresh and clean throughout the day, especially when we are experiencing a heat wave. So yeah, then the other thing is also, so that is major importance, I want to say, to the pets. The other thing is also, we can, not only by providing fresh water or getting your pet to drink more water during these hot days, we can also encourage them by drinking more by putting little flavored ice cubes, for instance, in the water. So if you've got it, just, I want to say, zhuzh up the water flavor profile of that. So that is a way of increasing your pet. You can put their favorite treats, freeze fresh, I want to say, treats that's also safe for your pet, like carrots or apples without the seeds, within those cubes. Their favorite, I want to say, broth, you can actually freeze those in little ice cubes and then add that to their water bowls as well. And that is also a way for them to cool down when the heat is very extreme. And the other part of that is also, you can also add some water to your pet's regular dry food kibble. So certain pets don't like to eat just the dry food, but a way to increase wet food or increase moisture into their diet or daily intake is some water over their kibble as well. Or even then, if your budget allows, to buy the appropriate wet food for the dog foods brand and actually add that and supplement that to the dog's diet. So these are just some of the ways in order to get your pet to drink or get those water intake, especially during the hot days.
That's amazing. And what are some of the risks of, we spoke about risk of for heat stroke. So what happens if we don't treat heat stroke when it actually does set in?
What happens during heat stroke is that a very good friend of mine, Dr. Nick Sturck, gave me this analogy of your body reacting like when you cook an egg. And so when you start cooking an egg in a cold pan, it's that see-through color, and that is absolutely normal. The second you start adding heat to it, it turns white. And the problem is that is cooking of that protein. Unless you, I want to say, with heat stroke specifically, get that pet to cool down, the body starts overcooking itself. And that is where organ failure, all sorts of very, very bad things happen to the pet, and we need to get them to a vet as soon as possible. Now, the key thing with heat stroke is that we need to prevent it. So one of the key tips for me is to please do not exercise during hot days, or if you see that there's a rise in temperature, don't take your pet out on exercise. Always provide them with shade. I want to say in good ventilation if they are caged, for instance. And the key thing is, if you do see your pet start to pant or start to breathe heavily or show signs, and we'll go through the signs of heat stroke now, if they do show that signs, is to make sure that you start cooling them down immediately. Now, one of the key things is not to use ice water. Think about yourself. When we are hot, we like to jump in the pool, or you go and stand under a cold shower. Normal cold water, that cools you down. You don't go from extreme heat and jump into an ice bath. That is where your body goes into shock. And that
unless you're doing the ice bath challenge.
But that is controlled, and that is, I want to say, that is such a huge trend now. But that is very controlled with people that guide you through those processes of breathing. And I want to say, and very, very, I want to say structured. Whereas with when there's heat stroke or when your body is overheating, it's to just normally cool your pet down. So that is for me quite important, that pet owners, if you suspect that your pet is overheating, take them to the bath, just run normal cold water, or under the shower, just put them running water over their bodies. One of the things that you can also do is, if you've got a hose pipe outside, you can also turn that on. Please, I want to encourage you to first, if the hose pipe's been outside in the sun, to first let that first bit of water out. We have seen burn wounds in my career where people have just turned open the tap, tried to cool down the pet, but that water was boiling hot. So just always make sure that the temperature of the water in the hose pipe is cool. The other thing is also is to get to your vet immediately. If your pet doesn't, once you started the cooling process, and the signs that they usually show is very labored breathing, panting, because that is the way of a dog, for instance, sweating. If they don't start slowing those things down, then you need to get to a vet, because that is where certain drugs and drip intravenous monitoring, looking at them at the hospital comes into play. And so that is just why, that is where that egg thing comes into play, is if you can't, the egg won't cook unless the heat is not there. But if your body goes over a certain temperature, that becomes highly, highly dangerous. And that's when you do then need to get to a vet.
Okay. And what are those signs of heat stroke? You did mention like the heavy panting. Is there any other signs to look out for, being lethargic, etc.?
Yes. So there's quite a few signs. What I always suggest to my pet parents, also when I do the educational events, is to know your pet's normal. Because if you know your pet's normal, like pink gums, when you lift the lip and you see the gum is nice and pink, if you know what their normal breathing is, even on a hot day, you know what their normal panting cycle is, you would see immediately what the signs are. Now, one of the signs is, yes, they start to pant. But that pant goes, I want to say, over excessive. They actually can turn bright red or even blue because they can't breathe fast enough. The other sign is skin elasticity. And that is where you actually take the back of your pet's neck, pinch a little bit of skin, like pull it upwards and drop it immediately. That's like a 1 second, I want to say, it's not you taking your pet and grabbing them by the back of the neck. It's literally a little pinch of the skin and drop the skin. If the skin returns to its normal texture and place where where it was, then your pet is not dehydrated. So that's another sign to look out for. The other one is also a very, very dry mouth. The third thing is being lethargic. So you will just see your pet is breathing heavily, but they don't have the energy. And another key sign is actually to look out for the color of your dog's urine, because that is a sign when they are dehydrated, it becomes very, very concentrated and dark yellow. So that is just some of the signs to look out for if you suspect that your pet might be dehydrated.
Okay. Perfect. But I think, you gave some good tips about prevention, right? So how do we manage the situation in this extreme hot conditions that we currently have? And then really good tips on what to look out for when we are entering into that danger zone. That kind of leads into the next topic I'd like to dive into and give some good advice for pet owners. And that is around first aid. We do all have a first aid kit in our homes as humans, but perhaps we don't necessarily give enough attention to what first aid we need to have for our pets in the home. So what would you suggest as a essential in a first aid kit, and then what maybe to add during the hot summer months as a staple in a first aid kit for your pet at home?
Okay, so the first thing is being prepared. And as we all know, emergencies happen during the hours where you didn't expect or when your vet is not open. So
Yes.
by being prepared and having this stuff readily available at home, that for me is the key thing. And especially when you are traveling. The same with your children, the amount of stuff that you can put in your first aid kit the list is as long as tomorrow. And so just depending on your pet, the breed, what is wrong with your pet, if there's certain things that is more prevalent in certain breeds, being prepared for that is key. So for me, I've got a little first aid kit just behind me. It's a small container that is separate to human medication. Now, the first thing why that is quite important is a lot of human medications are highly toxic for pets. So you can't use human medication on your pet unless the vet told you so. So the key thing in any emergency, and especially with human medication, is to always phone your vet first to check what medication you have got available before you give that, because based on your pet's weight specifically, and then the milligrams of that human medication, your vet will recommend the actual dosage to you in an emergency situation. So the first thing is, when you prepare your kit, I always have wound management essentials in there. Bandage material, antiseptic lotion, even an antiseptic solution, that when wounds happen, that is something that can be so easily treated if you've got bandage material with you. The second thing is also for allergies. Now, that is quite a common thing that happens, and especially when we are traveling now. You're going from one province to another. You don't know what grasses are there or what your pet might come into contact, or even a bee sting. And so from that point, also anti-allergic medication like an ointment, and even then vet approved. You can use human medication there, and Allergex or Rhinatin, but again, making sure what the correct amount is or what the dosage is for your pet specific, and before you just start giving something like an Allergex in an allergic reaction sort of way. Then the key thing is also dehydration. Now, as we just said, dehydration, the cause of that is usually vomiting and diarrhea. So when your pet starts vomiting or having an upset stomach, that leads to dehydration. So it's not just the increased water that happens, it's the body's natural way of when you lose that moisture. That is when dehydration happens. So an electrolyte mix is always handy to have. And again, if you go to your vet and have these different brands, even if I do show you some of the brands that I've got available in my kit today, that is not the only brands that is available out there. Please speak to your vet on which is the best. But you do get the little Prolite sachets, you get all sorts of other medication that is available for dehydration in terms of electrolyte mix. The other one is also, when it comes to vomiting and specifically upset stomachs, dehydration, is to have a product handy that also binds your stomach and just helps with, I want to say, that tummy that is not nice. Especially going into the festive season, you know how many braais we are having at the moment. People tend to come over. Your pet is used to its own food, and now your friends drop a choppy, and that type of things can really upset your doggy's doggy's stomach. So from that point of view, having certain antidiarrheal medication already handy in your first aid kit, the electrolyte mixture for if there is signs of dehydration, it's an easy way to get your pet to start, just help them with the electrolyte balance. And then the other one is also pain medication. Again, I would really suggest speak to your vet on the correct pain medication for your pet. And then also the other one is anti-anxiety or anti-stress medication. A lot of our pets we know are scared not only of thunder, but fireworks coming up. Although fireworks are banned in South Africa, people tend to still get their hands on it. And unfortunately, our pets do suffer under that. And we'll talk a little bit about fireworks and keeping your pet calm in a moment. But I would really recommend getting that prescription medication up front before you travel so that on that day you are well prepared and everything is ready and in your kit already.
Well, Dalene, I just want to do a public service announcement to all of those people going out to friends and families' homes to a braai. It's just good manners to ask if you may give a little bit of boerewors or a choppy to the pets. I just find it's just courteous and the right thing to do because you don't know how that pet reacts and if they're on a special diet. So please just ask the owner if it's okay to give that little braai vlees meat treat. It's just it's a more polite way of doing it because I've had to deal with upset stomach. So yeah, I think rather ask. No one's gonna think strange of you or think that you being extra. Just rather ask. I think it's the best way to approach that. So yeah, very good advice there. So Dalene, I'm like, let's crack open your first aid kit. I want to see what's in there.
Okay, let's do this. So the
I
first
love
thing
your
is
little tin.
I've got it all in a
It's
small
pretty.
container, and the reason for this was also so I am also a mom of two human children and then my two pet children. And one of the key things that I have learned is the thermometer. I do not want to get that mixed up in our household. So my first aid kit contains its own pet thermometer. So that was a lesson learned the hard way. And then I've just got some of the basics and some of, as I say, it's very, very basic, but it also contains certain medication that is ready and appropriate for my pet's specific situation. Now, one of the things I've always got in here is some gauze bandage, because gauze bandage, when there's bleeding, even like a little nail that gets hooked, gauze can go onto everything. And my favorite bandage material are these self-adhesive wraps. What I love about this self-adhesive bandage is that it tears off on itself. So you don't need scissors and things when it comes to your
Amazing.
pet. So that is, I use that for everything. Gauze bandage, any other bandage material, again, depends on your budget. But I've just found in emergency situations, if you've got gauze on the wound and you wrap it with your self-adhesive bandage, that puts some pressure
But that
on, the bleeding
pressure.
stops, and then you can assess the situation going on later. The other one that I've also got in my kit is gloves. I always have a set of gloves in here, and it's just
Okay.
also in terms of this time of the year, people breaking in. And although this is something that we never want to hear or never ever wish upon anyone, but we have seen an increase in house break-ins and people using highly toxic, you see, poisons to poison pets
Mm.
in order to break into houses. So whenever
It's a
you suspect,
reality, right? So we've got to, it's like it's an unfortunate reality. So I think it's better that we have the conversation and inform people of what to do in those situations. Like you say, we don't really want to, we don't want to really think about it, but it unfortunately, it does happen.
yeah, and it's better to be prepared for that. But also, if you do suspect that, I have got the gloves. Despite I want to say any other thing, being well prepared is just always better than being caught off guard. Then the other thing that I always have in my kit is a saline solution, and that is specifically for eyes. Because we don't want to use just normal tap water. Again, depending when you are traveling, the state of the water of South Africa, I would not trust that. So by having a sterile solution when it comes to washing out the eyes, that is in my kit for a reason.
Okay, I love that. And I love that it's already is it in a syringe already?
It's in a little disposable. What I would suggest, you know what, you can also have a look at contact lens solution is also a sterile solution. So that is
Yeah,
just
and they
something
come in
that
those handy,
they
and they come in
already
those like
come in
handy
these
individuals.
little individual things. So you can, I mean, depending on the size of your first aid kit, I mean, again, packaging and products and everything that you can put in, is it really, really depends. But you get liquid solutions that comes in a liter bottle. It doesn't have to
Mm.
be just a little container. So again, speak to your vet on the different medications, different packaging, different sizes that you can afford to then also add into your
Love that.
then I always have I do want to just make a disclosure. This is not punting a brand. This is merely what is in my kit at the moment, but it's anti-diarrheal medication, I want to say electrolyte mix in there. I always have pain medication in here. And then let me just quickly have a look. Always have syringes. Because again, you don't know when you have to give medication or how you have to give it. That is all in there. And then my pets specifically have got pain medication that was prescribed for them because I know it's
Okay.
safe for them and I know the dosage for them. So that I've got in my kit already. That is basically, and then some wound spray as well. I've just got some wound
Okay.
spray because that just helps whenever there is a situation.
Okay. So, and I mean, I love that because what you're saying, like, it is really it's the basics, right? And the gauze, again, you buy a pack, you put some in your human first aid kit, you put some in your dog or cat or whatever pet's first aid kit. I've got a big bag of those things. And so many of those things that you've actually showed today, we actually already may have in our homes as well. And I love that because it's not extra, always, again, depending on your budget and your vet's recommendation. I think it's a very manageable thing for all of us to introduce into our homes.
Yes.
So you spoke a little bit about.
Can I just add to that? Yeah. So, I just also want to add to that, especially during summer months and depending on your pet's breed. What I would add to that during summer times is those cooling mats or the little, I want to say those clicker things that cool your pet down because those do help. I also want pet owners to understand that it's not only the flat nose breeds that are prevalent or more prevalent to heat stroke. Any pet can get heat stroke. So it's always important to make sure to know the signs of your pet, in terms of breathing, in terms of how they pant, in terms of the color of their gum, because it's not just our flat nose breeds like our bulldogs, our Frenchies, our pugs who are prevalent to getting heat stroke. It can be any single breed. If you start to overheat and it's too hot and your body can't regulate yourself, that can lead to heat stroke.
Yeah. Yeah. I have my husband's the CEO of their business. She does agility with her dogs, and they have these he's showed me a picture. It's the cutest thing ever. They have these little cooling harnesses that they put on because obviously now they're doing it in this heat. These little cooling harnesses that they put on afterwards to help cool them down. It's the cutest thing ever. And I think it just goes to that, that ability of the body to self-regulate becomes overstimulated or reaches that point of no return. And it needs that outside help to cool it down back into a normal range. So a cooling mat is really helpful and handy. And if you may not have those at hand, I'm sure putting a wet towel in the fridge maybe for a couple of minutes and then putting that onto their cushion or their bedding.
If you think that they need some cooling down, normal running water is actually the only way to go. Putting the towel over the dog is a very old school way of looking at treating overheat pets. Because what they found is when you start putting the towel, although it is wet and cold, when you put it over your pet, it actually creates a little dome and they heat up more quicker. So if you want to put the wet towel just underneath them on their bed, yes, absolutely perfect. But in case of heat stroke and when you are driving to your vet, just put it on their normal bed, put the aircon on full blast, and get to the vet as soon as possible.
Okay, yeah, that's amazing.
Just normal running water over your pet's body. And as I said, cold tap water. That is the way that we cool down, and so that is the most important one. But not put the towel over the pet because they actually heat up way quicker. Although it's cold and it is wet, it creates that little pocket for them.
No, I love that. And I think that's a great tip because you might be inclined to go, okay, yes, let's put it on their bedding, but surely it would be better if we put it over them. And I think that's really great advice. You also, when you were talking about your first aid kit, you touched a little bit on loud noises and being prepared for that. as an essential, I think, especially during this time to go into the first aid kit. It's December. We're going to have your parties. It's going to be Christmas. It's going to be New Year. There's going to be not only the odd illegal firework, but there is also going to be loud music. People with cars in the road. You might be the loud neighbor, who knows? But loud neighbors. How do we set ourselves up for success? I know, which is something I didn't know at first, that many of the anti-anxiety medication or the calming medication that are out there for dogs especially, and cats, because cats also have really high anxiety and they should not be discounted as being needing to be treated. They actually have to be given a couple of days in advance to take full effect. And I was like, wow, I didn't know that. Being proactive is really, really critical here. What tips and advice do you have during this time if you have a pet that is sound sensitive, that is have anxiety when there's lots of people around? How do we, and I think we can talk in the context of cats and dogs here, how do we help our kittens and puppies out there to go through this festive season without so much anxiety and stress?
Okay, so I think the first thing is if you can create a safe and calm environment for them, that is the key thing, especially on, let's take thunder and fireworks out of it. Let's just take Christmas Day, the whole family coming around, masses of people that your pet is not being used to. Put them away in a room where you know that they are safe and that they are calm and the curtains are closed. Now, one of the key things is, and this applies to even when fireworks or certain events are taking place, is making sure that your pet is indoors. And the second thing is that they are microchipped. What is very important to understand is that pets do not react the same during a stressful situation as they would normally if you are, for instance, on your walk. If a pet is highly stressed, they react totally different. And so where you would be able to call your pet to come back to you on a normal day, in a case of a loud bang, in a case of fireworks going off, your pet will actually, I want to say, run away. They will jump walls. I've seen pets being hooked on the palisade, trying to get away from sound.
Yeah.
And I'm actually getting goosebumps because they don't react like they would on a normal day. So I would suggest make sure that they are indoors, make sure that they are in a room where they've got their own comfort with them. So put their bed there, put their favorite toy there, put something that smells of you with them. Another great tip to do is find on Spotify or any music platform pet calming music and actually put that on in the background, because that covers out the huzz and the buzz and the other noise that is actually there that can stress them out even more. The thing is also to, as we just spoke about, calming medication. Over-the-counter medications do need to be taken way in advance in order for it to have its full effect. But you can speak to your vet, and I would recommend having that in your first aid kit, that in case of emergency where your pet is busy freaking out and it is 12 o'clock at night, that you actually do have access to one little tablet that can help them with immediate effect, and not having your pet go through that. The other part of it is also stress and anxiety usually doesn't get better. And I do want to warn pet parents against that, because once your pet is stressing, they only start stressing more and more and more. And the anxiety actually gets way out of control. So if you do see signs of stress with your pet, and if you see that they are struggling, please speak to your vet and get that medication in advance. Just one also thing about this, prescription medication does need to go hand in hand with a consultation. You have to see the vet. Your vet has to do a proper health check on its heart, making sure that its body is fine, checking its weight, and then prescribe that medication. These anti-anxiety medications you can't buy over the counter. You can't phone your vet on Christmas Day or on New Year's Day and say, hey, please give me some tablets. You need to set this up in advance, and it is a paid consultation where your vet will do a proper health check on your pet and then prescribe the correct medication for them.
Yeah.
And that's according to the South African Veterinary Council and rules and regulations that's out there when it comes to prescription medication specifically.
Yeah. And it's so key what you're saying, like once they have that anxiety, it doesn't actually get better. I've got a lady, one Cocker Spaniel, she thunder completely sends her off. And it's like it's getting progressively worse over every year. She's a little bit more sensitive, a little bit more sensitive. So, and I love the idea of, a room, all their bedding, curtains closed, having something that smells of you, music. I think that's something we can all do. And then if you know if your pet suffers from anxiety, then taking the right course of action to set yourself up, for success. And I fully agree with you. Veterinary consultation, super, super important, especially if we get into the realm of prescription medication, because those things do need to be given in a controlled environment, having done due diligence in terms of the pet safety first, but there's certainly things we can manage within the environment that definitely helps. Should we then put something, I think definitely water needs to be in the room for them. Do we need to put any food out for them, or is that not advisable?
It really depends on how long, I want to say, your party's going to last. Also when a pet is stressed, they're not going to eat. While they're stressed, they might even vomit
Okay.
when they are stressed. So it really depends on the timing that they are in that enclosure. Food, if your pet normally eats in the morning and at night, what I would suggest is just give that nighttime a meal, maybe a little bit, an hour or two earlier, just to make sure that they have got their food in their belly and it's already settled in. But again, from a stress point of view, and late at night, your pet's not going to eat. That's the time of sleeping. So I wouldn't even worry about food at that time if it is fireworks specifically. But if it's a day where it's Christmas Day, I would always put food and water and making sure that your pet is well looked after. The other thing also with fireworks specifically and thunder, you do get some great techniques where it's a wrapping technique, and also you can buy, depending on your budget, you get the thunder wraps, or it's a wrapping technique on how you can wrap your pet so that they feel secure in a moment of stress. I would definitely advise people to seek professional help when it comes to just putting on these shirts, tightening them, the wrapping techniques, to make sure that you also practice these before the event. It's not to say that, now there's thunder or now there's fireworks, now you're going to wrap your pet and now they are fine. It's everything that we put into place, from creating the safe space, the hugging technique, every single thing that actually helps to that pet to calm down. Even some pheromones. For cats, calming pheromones like Fellaway can help if you have the diffusers or the sprays put up to help them feel safe and calm. But again, that depends on budget. And if you cannot provide that for your pet, please just make sure that they stay indoors.
Yeah, I'm like, the cat pheromone treatment is quite interesting to me. I have a friend also who's got a very anxious cat, started licking himself to the point where, he was licking his coat off, and she went to see her vet and he advised to put a pheromone collar on, and it changed their lives, both my friend's life and Sonic's life, completely in managing that. He copes with it fine. It was helping him through a period, but again, done under veterinary care and advice. So, Dalene, I want to maybe start talking a little bit about the holiday times where people might be putting their pets into a dog hotel or a cat hotel, and even maybe having a house sitter over. It goes without saying, the chipping of the dog, but thinking about what is the stuff we need to prepare for when we put our dog, maybe especially if you're the first time putting your pet up at a hotel, what are some of the things we need to do? Is there any kind of vaccinations we need to know about? How do we make sure, nutrition, how would that work when you put your dog into a doggy hotel? What are the conversations to be had with the owner of the hotel? So yeah, I think there's a lot in there. So I think maybe let's start off with the medical side of it. So if you are putting your dog up at a hotel or a cat hotel, what are some of the things we have to do? Kennel cough and all of those things come to mind. What are the stuff that we need to do from a medical point of view before we take our dog to any, or cat to any kind of hotel or daycare?
I think the key thing here, Kat, is for owners to also be prepared. Something like vaccinations, deworming, those things need to happen yearly or according to your vet. And that gets recorded. You've got a little vaccination card when you had a puppy, but I think a lot of the times people forget that certain of these diseases, you need to protect them throughout their life. And it is just when it comes to traveling, even going to different provinces, when it comes to putting them into a facility during the holidays, is that you are well prepared and making sure that your vaccine schedule and worming schedule is up to date. The other thing of that is to do your research and look at recommendations and ratings and reviews of people who has been there previously. And then also, it doesn't matter if you're taking your pet with you or if you are putting them up in a doggy hotel or have the pet sitter there, is to have your first aid kit prepared. And again, if you are traveling, to have something that is nice and portable. If your pet sitter is staying at home, to make sure that they know where that is, but also to make sure that your vet is aware that someone else is taking care of your dog, and that if something happens, that they have got full authority to proceed with treatment. Because it is just prevalent during these times. The other thing is also your regular pet's food. When it is travel time or when it's holiday time, this is not the time to start changing your pet's diet. Try and just stick to its normal food, and also send them, I want to say, make sure that your pet sitter's got enough food if they are staying at home, taking your own pet's food with you, remembering to do that. And then also, when you are setting them into the doggy hotel or cat hotel, is to actually send their food with them. That just prevents upset stomachs. I mean, that is as easy as that. And it's also something that they are familiar with. So that is just a small tip from me. The other one is also, when you are traveling, is to make sure that you know where the vet in that area is. I mean, it's a little Google search and it's saving their number on your phone, or even providing your vet's details to your pet sitter. And it's just because in an emergency situation, the last thing that you want to do is panic or not knowing where the closest 24-hour facility is available, or who the emergency vet is, or what their number is that you have to phone. So even if you're traveling out of town, make sure that you know the vet within the immediate area's details, so that you've got easy access to them should something go wrong.
And I think it's so important that if you are lucky enough to be one of those people who can take their pet with them on holiday, it's so important to take your food with, especially if you're going to a new place, because you might end up going there and then you're not able to find your new food. And we all know changing diets, there's a transition period and a right way of doing it. So yeah, I think it's vitally important to take enough of your food with you, unless you know for sure that you are going to be able to find it there and it's a place that you stay at regularly. Because I just think about where we vacation, our dog food brand isn't available in that area, so it's very important to pack that with you. And we always hear about kennel cough. Is that something that we should be concerned about? Is that part of your normal vaccination routine, or is that a specific vaccination that needs to be taken as an additional to the normal vaccination regime?
Yes, and usually also when you do check into these facilities, or boarding facilities, if I could call it that, they will tell you what is required. So kennel cough is just highly contagious, and it's something that can be preventable by vaccinating your pet. So I would also speak to your vet when you are going there for your consultation. They need their vaccinations up to date. If your pet is not getting them microchipped, and it's such an easy, I want to say, really non-health threatening procedure, where it's a little injection and it's a rice grain. The microchip is the size of a rice grain that they just embed under the pet's skin, and then your details are linked to that. So whenever there's, your pet slips out of the collar, or they ran away, or, fireworks or stressful situation, they are lost, we are able to then trace them back to you specifically.
Yeah, and I think that's such an important thing, and I think such an important thing to make pet owners aware of, that it's almost a non-invasive or minimally invasive procedure to have the microchip installed, and I think every vet has got a scanner to scan that chip if a pet comes to them. All the shelters, I know Woodrock's got, Oscar's have, SPCA have, so all the shelters also have microchip scanners and readers. So it is the best way of ensuring that your pet lands back with you if they do happen to get lost, and keeping that data up to date. I get emails every year from the company that my pets are chipped with, asking me if my information is up to date. So chipping them is one thing, but also making sure that the information that is on there is accurate and up to date. So, it's worth just reviewing that if you have recently moved or had your phone number changed. So microchipping is by far the most effective way of making sure that if your dog does get lost, that they can find their way home again.
Absolutely.
Well, Dalene, I want to thank you so much again for joining us today. It's been such a lovely conversation, and you gave us such helpful, handy, practical tips on what to do in the summer months. Absolutely love the conversation about the first aid kit. I'm now also going to go buy myself a little separate first aid kit container. You completely inspired me. It was so lovely, and thank you again for your time.
It's a big pleasure, Kat. Thank you so much.
And then to everyone else who tuned in to today's podcast, thank you so much for watching and listening. If you enjoyed the conversation, please like and share this podcast. It just helps us spread the word out there and help more pet owners to stay safe this summer. Thank you.